Hello, Tar Heel Nation. It is Final Four week. It is the middle of March Madness. It is go time for the Heels. Welcome to another episode of UNC Hoops Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Dan DeWitt. Pumped here. We're quick second podcast of the week. We looked at, obviously, the Tar Heels' previous games, the Elite Eight game, Sweet 16 game on the last podcast. Go check it out if you have not listened to that one. And we also looked ahead a little bit towards the Oregon Final Four game for the Heels. In this podcast, I'm going to quickly take a look at kind of the Final Four as a whole, take a look at both games, kind of what do I expect from both games and all that kind of good stuff. I want to thank you for listening, supporting the podcast, for sharing it out, doing another live one here. I'm live on YouTube, got Periscope going over here on my phone. So it should be lots of fun. If you have any questions, shoot them in the comments here as we're going. I'll try to answer them as we go. If you are listening this later as the podcast or on YouTube or whatever, leave comments and I'd love to chat, or otherwise go into the description. My Twitter is there, email, however you want to get in contact with me. I'd love to hear feedback from you, hear questions, comments, anything like that. And the purpose of this podcast is to unite Tar Heel Nation. Obviously, on this one, we're going to take a look at the Final Four, maybe with a little bit or as much as we can of an unbiased look as we can at the Final Four. And also, I love to chat college basketball, but especially UNC hoops with anyone, anytime, any place. So I'm going to try to kind of do this one a little bit more as a live one than I usually do. Obviously, for the people listening later, the live stuff doesn't matter to them, but if you got questions on Periscope or in YouTube, hit those comments up. I'll try to keep up on them as best I can. And let's jump on into it. So the first game that we got going on, it is Thursday as I record this. We got 2 days till April 1st, April Fool's Day. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, with the Heels be playing in the Final Four, but Saturday night, the first game we got going on is Gonzaga, the 1 seed, facing the 7 seed in South Carolina. Games will be on CBS. I have not seen yet. I assume there will be team streams like there was last year on TBS and TNT. So if you wanted to listen to kind of the Homer stations, and you're, I guess it's not normal, guys, because last year they had Brendan Hayward as the kind of UNC Homer. But if you wanted to listen to more of a biased North Carolina, Gonzaga, South Carolina, Oregon feed or whatever, it would be available. So I assume that's going on. The national broadcast will be on CBS. That first game, Gonzaga against South Carolina or USC, I'll try. I shouldn't have to try. I won't call them just Carolina because we know who the real Carolina is. But that game starts at 6:09 Eastern time. I was looking at my time, Central time, but 6:09 Eastern tip for Gonzaga and South Carolina. Right now, the spread is Gonzaga favored by 6.5 points. The over and under is 138 points. And then the North Carolina-Oregon game will follow 40 minutes following the end of the Gonzaga-South Carolina game. So on ESPN right now, they have it as a 8:49 Eastern tip on CBS. Obviously, that can be moved around according to if the Gonzaga South Carolina game is a blowout and it goes quickly, maybe a little bit sooner. Although I don't know that they'd start it sooner. They'd probably just waste more time in the studio until that time to tip. But obviously, if that game is a close one or lots of fouls and it takes a long time, it'll start later. Overtime obviously would push it back. But yeah, 40 minutes following the end of the first game is when North Carolina, Oregon. And just to compare a little bit, in this one, North Carolina is favored by 4.5 points over Oregon. The over-under is 152.5. So about 14, 15 points higher is the over-under for North Carolina, Oregon compared to Gonzaga, South Carolina. And I bring that up only to kind of say I expect the pace to be much slower in the first game. Gonzaga is a very solid team, balanced team. Obviously, they're led by Niles Williams-Goss, who is All-American in for some Player of the Years. had a great year for them. The transfer from Washington. But they have, they can play inside. They got Karnowski in there. They got, I don't even know the other big guy's name, but they got a couple of big guys in there that can play really well. They can hurt you with driving to the basket. They can hit some threes. They're kind of like this. They don't depend on the three for sure, but they can play inside, outside. Defense is one of the higher ranked ones in the country as far as efficiency goes. They're a very effective defensive team. It's not going to be like a West Virginia press and get lots of turnovers, stuff like that. Hello, Sir Puff, a lot. Thanks for tuning back in. Good to have you. So yeah, Gonzaga is not going to get out and press a bunch. They're not going to force turnovers. They're not even necessarily going to block shots. That they're just a very solid defensive team, very effective as a defensive team. South Carolina is very physical team. Likes to get after you, get up and pressure you on defense. Not afraid to commit some fouls. But so that's just going to be a much more of a defensive battle. Although Gonzaga, like I said, a very balanced team. They're going to they can score in a lot of different ways, which is obviously makes them harder to stop. So they're going to put up the points. South Carolina during the season was not great offensively by any means. Obviously, we know they put up 65 in the second half against Duke in that upset, and they've been scoring. Obviously, Thornwell for them has been huge. I think he's averaging like 27 points a game. So they've been doing it, getting it done on the offensive end. I don't know that they're going to be able to do it against Gonzaga. Obviously, people say Gonzaga is in a weak conference. They play defense against these weaker teams. That's why they look so good stat-wise on the defensive end. But I do think they're not necessarily going to shut down Thornwell and shut down South Carolina. They're going to do it enough, and they can score in such a balanced way and in so many different ways. I do see Gonzaga being able to pull that one out against South Carolina. Obviously, if you guys have watched the podcast or seen me on Twitter anywhere, that I'm a huge Carolina fan. If you're listening to this, I'm a big Carolina fan. This is the UNC Hoops Talk podcast, so that's pretty obvious. So you can assume I'm going to pick North Carolina. So that would mean we have the 1 seeds in the championship game. I'm going to try to look at North Carolina, Oregon as unbiased as I can. Obviously, I'm going to root for them, pull for them with all that I have. But just to kind of look at it a little bit, Oregon will get out and run a little bit with us. Obviously, that encourages us. It's always funny as we lead up to some of these games. We've had it in the past tournaments, even this tournament with Arkansas and some of those teams who are like, oh, we're going to run with them. We're going to outrun North Carolina. Like, you just don't do that. It doesn't happen. You don't outrun North Carolina. Any team that does, they stick with us, for a half, for 3/4 of the game, whatever, and then we just outrun them. We're tired. So I don't think Oregon's going to do that completely. They're not going to commit to getting out and run with us and being all crazy like that. But they will get out and run. They are a very athletic team, possibly the most athletic team in the Final Four here, even more so than Carolina. But they're not going to get crazy like that. They're smarter than that, I think. They will play some matchup zone against us. Probably most of the game, they'll probably be in their matchup zone. It's worked well for them up to this point. They stifled Kansas with it. Kansas didn't know what to do with it. And if you look, North Carolina isn't great against zone teams. They can knock down threes, and then they can easily fall in love with the three and forget to go inside. For North Carolina, it's important that they get the ball to the high post, to Kennedy, to Isaiah, to Luke May, and either take those 15-foot jumpers, which the other team would probably like if we settled for that, or go high-low because they can't double down on the post out of the zone as quickly if they're covering the high post. So, but our guards, we're going to have to knock down some threes. Joel Berry's got to shoot better than he has. Justin Jackson as well. Even though they've been putting up points and doing all right, they're going to have to knock down some shots. And then we also got to be aggressive, hitting the gaps and driving to the basket. Excuse me. Joel Berry did a great job last game against Kentucky of getting to the hole. They were playing man, though. It was a little bit more wide open for him to do that. He's going to have to drive and dump off to our big guys for some dunks, or drive and then kick out for a three to Justin Jackson. We have to make sure we're making that defensive work, and we can't just pass it around the outside and then chuck up a three, or try to throw it inside and just let that guy go on to a double team and try to score. So I don't think it's going to be easy. I said it in the last podcast, if North Carolina plays their game, there's no reason that they shouldn't win the game. Obviously, it comes down to how effective Joel Berry can be coming off the ankle injury. If he's people are saying, would he play? Roy said in his press conference, I think it was Tuesday, if the game was today, he wouldn't play. So it's a good thing it wasn't today. I don't think there's any way. I think there's 0% chance he doesn't play. He's going to play. There's no way that he doesn't play. But how effective is he? How effective can he be? Like I said, he's got to be able to knock down some shots. He did not knock down shots at all against Kentucky. He didn't shoot the ball well, and it very well could have been because of the ankle. He sprained it pretty quickly or pretty early on in that Kentucky game. Maybe couldn't push off, couldn't get the lift he needed, whatever, couldn't knock down shots. He's got to knock down a couple of shots at least just to keep him honest enough in this game. But also he's got to be able to drive, and it's going to be harder against the zone than just beating one guy and getting to the hole. So, how effective Joel is going to be a big thing in this game. And then also negating their shot blockers. Bell, down low for Oregon, had 8 blocked shots against Kentucky. If it's Joel driving and tries to shoot every time, Justin with his floater even, you could see him getting some shots blocked. If it's, Kennedy Meeks trying to just jump over, or even Isaiah Hicks for that matter, jump over and try to dunk it on him, could see some shots getting blocked. What we need is Joel driving to the hole, dump it off to Isaiah, dump it off to Kennedy. Then they go up and get the dunk. Do you think we can beat the Zach? Oh yeah, we should beat. If North Carolina plays the way that they're capable of, the way they can, the way they did against Kentucky, I think they beat any of these teams in the Final Four. I said it before, knock on wood, as long as we don't lose focus, that championship game should have been the Kentucky-North Carolina one. I felt whoever won that game should be favored to win the national championship. Obviously, stranger things have happened. So, we can't just say, we beat Kentucky, now we're going to win the national championship. Oregon and Gonzaga or South Carolina, whoever we play, is a cakewalk to a national championship. They do that, and they can easily lose. We're only a 4.5 game favorite or point favorite, so it's not like we couldn't lose to Oregon and wouldn't be like a huge upset or anything. But we got to play our game. We got to be able to drive and dump it, I think is going to be the key, or drive and kick out for a wide open 3 against the zone. Defensively, and I should say too, get the big guys in foul trouble. If we can get Bell with 2 quick ones like we did with Monk and Fox in the Kentucky game, if we can get him his 3rd foul early in the second half, and he can't go up and contest shots as much because he can't be as aggressive, or he can't come out and guard somebody in a pick and roll because he's got those fouls, then obviously that's a big advantage for us. We got to also take care of the boards. That should go without saying. That's been our strong suit all season. It should be, or it is, what has gotten us this far. And against the zone as well, people don't box out as well where they're playing zone. So offensive rebounding is huge. If we can get them and convert off those second chance opportunities, it helps our chances immensely. If they let us go one and done, they get every defensive rebound or whatever, or they don't let us score off the offensive rebound, obviously it swings into Oregon's favor a little bit more there each time that happens. So defensively, we know we're going to play man-to-man. I think we played, 1, maybe 2 possessions of zone against Kentucky. I don't know if, that's going to be the case at all against Oregon. It'd have to be the right situation. And we got to stay out of foul trouble. Against Kentucky, Theo got 2 quick ones. Isaiah wasn't in that game, but we obviously know the foul troubles that Isaiah can get into. We can't get – Kennedy was huge against Kentucky with 17 rebounds. We can't get him out of there, and then we got to depend on Luke May, who didn't play in the Final Four, even though he played so well in the regional, was the most outstanding player of the regional. We can't depend on him and Tony Bradley in his first time being in the Final Four to carry us. Are they capable? Yes. But do we want to depend on that? I think absolutely not. So defensively, keeping guys in front of us. And again, that's how effective can Joel be with his ankle. I said in the last podcast, the most interesting matchup to me in the Oregon-North Carolina game is going to be on the wing. who guards Justin Jackson and who does Justin Jackson guard? We know Theo can guard people. Joel is going to be on their point guard. Is it Dylan Brooks? Is it I'm forgetting the other wing they have. They got one other really nice wing, but who is it that guards Justin Jackson, tries to contain him, because he's obviously been our leading scorer most of the year, and also who does Justin Jackson guard? Does that get him in foul trouble? Does that he played great defense on Monk. Monk did not get going. He ended up with 12 points, and he had 2 late crazy threes. Otherwise, Monk has like 6-7 points in the game. So can he be as effective defensively as he was against Kentucky? So like I said, if Carolina has their focus, plays their game, it's a win for Carolina. They're in the national championship on Monday. Gonzaga, I think, again, it wouldn't be crazy. It's only a 6.5 point in Gonzaga's favor, that they're favored over South Carolina. It wouldn't be a huge upset. And obviously we know the run South Carolina is on. They've had to beat, I picked South Carolina to lose in the stinking first round of 64 to, I don't even remember who, but the 10 seed. They ended up beating Duke. They didn't have to play Villanova, but they beat everybody put in front of them up to this point. So could they beat Gonzaga? Absolutely. I think everybody's kind of cheering for a Carolina final game or championship game, but I don't think it happens. I think it's Gonzaga, North Carolina, which I think would put a little bit more. It would make interesting. I'll talk about this Monday. I'm going to try to podcast Monday before the championship game and get that up so people can hear it before the championship game. But I think that would put a little bit more pressure on the Tar Heels because of are they going to let Gonzaga get their first championship when people think they should never be a 1 seed? They can't make the Final Four. Are they going to kind of give them the championship and lose another final game like they did last year? Maybe not in the same fashion, but lose 2 national championships in back-to-back years? Or are they going to get that redemption, take care of Gonzaga, get that championship that they left in Houston last year? So I think that puts a little bit more pressure on Carolina. If it's South Carolina, there's the whole talk of the South Carolina North Carolina stuff, but yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. We'll talk about that again, like I said, more Monday. So my picks for the Final Four here are Gonzaga beating South Carolina, and I think they even take care of that 6.5 point spread. I'm going to say they win by 8, 10, 12 points, somewhere in there. 8 to 12 points is my prediction, that they beat South Carolina. And I do think it'll be a slower, not necessarily a grinded out game, but more of a defensive battle there. And I just think Gonzaga's got enough firepower on the offense and very effective team defensively. Plus the week getting ready for them, I think Mark Few just has them ready. South Carolina plays more off of emotion and stuff like that. And, I think on a 2 days rest, that would work better. But I think Gonzaga takes care of this one. And then I will pick North Carolina. And again, my X factor is how effective is Joel Berry. Other than that, North Carolina should be able to beat and can beat Oregon to set up a 1-versus-1 in the championship game on Monday, April 3rd. It'll be North Carolina against Gonzaga Bulldogs. I would love to hear your picks. If you're on Periscope, quick, get it up here before I end. If you're listening to the podcast, hit me up on Twitter, email, wherever you're at. I'm probably there. Look in the description below. If you're not connected with me already, connect with me. Give me your picks for the Final Four here. Give me what your X factor is, whatever you got there, whatever you can fit. If it's Twitter, I know you only got 140 characters. So I'd love to hear what you guys got, what your picks are. But that's all I got for you this week. Hopefully I didn't ramble on too long here. And like I said, I will see you guys Monday, getting ready for the championship game. Unless North Carolina's not in it, then maybe I'll be too depressed that I can't podcast if North Carolina loses here against Oregon. But knock on wood, that's not going to happen. We're going to be there in the championship game on Monday. I'm going to podcast before the game, leading up to it, to kind of break down that game. I hope you'll join me for that one as well. That's all I got for you today. I will see you guys hopefully on Monday. But until then, go Heels.